The first microphone was still live when my husband turned my accent into entertainment. "The microphones are picking us up," I whispered, touching Daniel's sleeve. He leaned back in his chair and repeated it in a sing-song version of my Brazilian accent. "D microphones are peeking us up." His mother laughed from the stage. The sound moved through the glass foyer, bright and sharp. Faces turned. I could feel the room waiting for me to prove I was easygoing. I swallowed and stayed seated. Then Martin Vale crossed the foyer carrying a copy of Vivian's book. He stopped beside me, opened it, and held out the first printed page. "Read the dedication, Sophia." The stage technician rotated the nearest microphone. A reporter raised hers. Even the microphone Daniel had forgotten about seemed to point at me. I looked down. For Sophia, who listened until I found the truth beneath the story, and whose voice taught me what welcome sounds like. Daniel's face was tense, but it wasn't surprised. That was the part I couldn't understand. Martin waited with one hand resting on the open book. He was a narrow man with silver hair and the patient expression of someone who had spent 30 years letting writers finish bad explanations. "Go ahead," he said. I stood because remaining seated had started to feel more conspicuous than standing. The microphone on the table was low, so I had to bend toward it. My voice shook on the first word. It steadied on my name. For Sophia, who listened until I found the truth beneath the story, and whose voice taught me what welcome sounds like. Behind me, someone's camera shutter snapped 3 times. The glass walls returned, a faint echo of my last word. Vivian recovered before anyone else. "There she is," she said warmly, "my very modest daughter-in-law." The room loosened. People smiled because she had shown them how. Vivian lifted her champagne glass toward me. She wore ivory silk under a pale gold jacket, and the stage lights made her look softer than she was. Every writer needs a patient first reader. Sophia gave me many evenings when she could have been doing something far more exciting. The audience laughed. I looked at Daniel. He gave me a tiny nod that meant sit down. Martin still held the book open. "First reader?" he said. He didn't say it loudly, but Vivian heard him. "A heroic first reader," she corrected, "and a member of the family, which means she wasn't allowed to quit." Another laugh, this one thinner. Martin closed the book and handed it to me. "Keep that copy." Vivian's eyes followed it into my hands. I sat. Daniel leaned close enough that his mouth almost brushed my ear. "What was that?" he asked. "What was what?" "You standing up like you were accepting an award." I looked at him, thinking I must have misheard. "Martin asked me to read. You didn't have to make it a whole moment." From the stage, Vivian began telling the story of the summer she learned to cook in Provence. I knew the original version. She had spent 6 days at a rented farmhouse outside Avignon with her second husband, Roger, who had done most of the cooking because Vivian disliked handling raw poultry. In the book, 6 days had become a season. I knew exactly when that happened. I had been sitting across from her at her kitchen island, headphones on while she searched for the right phrase. "It felt longer than 6 days, she'd told me. "That doesn't make it a season." Emotionally, it was a season. Emotionally, you can call it a long summer. She had pointed at me with a wooden spoon. Put that in. Now she spoke about her long summer in Provence as if the phrase had arrived with the scent of lavender. Daniel tapped the cover of the book in my lap. "Mom thought they changed that page." I turned to him. "On stage," Vivian said. "A house remembers who has been fed in it." "What do you mean, changed it?" Daniel stared ahead. "Not now." "You knew?" I said, "Not now, Sophia." That answer slid into place beside the imitation, and suddenly the joke didn't feel impulsive. It felt like a hand closing over my mouth before anyone could ask what else I had done. A server passed with a tray of champagne. I took a glass, even though I had spent the afternoon reminding the staff not to serve me while I was working. Daniel reached for one, too. The server moved the tray away from him. "Sorry," she said. Mrs. Almeida told us you're giving the closing toast. For one clean second, I loved her. Daniel looked at me. You said you wanted to stay sharp, I reminded him. I said that at lunch. I thought your standards might survive until 8. The server bit the inside of her cheek and escaped. Daniel's hand settled on my knee beneath the table. From a distance, it probably looked affectionate. His fingers pressed hard enough to find bone. Can we get through one night without you correcting me? He said. I removed his hand. Apparently not. Vivian's launch occupied the east wing of Bellwether Glasshouse, a restored conservatory attached to the city's botanical museum. During the day, sunlight poured through its iron ribs and warmed the limestone floor. At night, the glass turned reflective. 200 guests sat surrounded by dark copies of themselves. I had booked the room when Vivian's original venue canceled. I had negotiated the museum fee, ordered the risers, found the florist, adjusted the lighting so Vivian's glasses wouldn't throw white circles into every photograph, and argued with the caterer about whether risotto could be served to 200 people without becoming grout. At 6 that evening, Vivian had squeezed my wrists and said, "You saved me." At 7:10, she had laughed at my accent. At 7:12, her editor had handed me proof that she had tried to erase. I drank the champagne too quickly. Martin took the empty chair on my other side when the moderator invited Vivian to read an excerpt. He smelled faintly of peppermint and rain. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "About which part?" His eyes moved toward Daniel, then back to the stage. The dedication was in the signed final proof. I wasn't informed there was a problem until the books had shipped. What problem? "Sophia," Daniel warned. Martin's eyebrows rose. "My name is a problem?" I asked. Vivian began reading from the chapter about the first apartment she shared with Daniel's father. Her voice caught at precisely the right sentence. I had marked the pause in her rehearsal copy. Martin lowered his voice. Vivian requested a blank dedication page. We declined to pulp 6,000 finished copies over a family disagreement. When did she request it? 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Vivian had taken me to lunch at a French restaurant where the butter came molded into tiny ridged towers. She had reached across the table and thanked me for giving her the courage to sound like herself. She had asked whether I would help produce the tour recordings. I remembered sliding one of the butter towers around my plate while I calculated how many evenings that would take. Beside me, Daniel watched his mother read. "You knew 3 weeks ago?" I whispered. He exhaled through his nose. She was feeling exposed. By my name? By the idea that people might think she didn't write her own book. She did write it. I know. I edited recordings. I shaped transcripts. I found the structure after her first manuscript was rejected. I know, Sophia. Then why would the dedication make her look dishonest? Daniel finally turned. His expression held the weary patience he used when a restaurant had lost our reservation. Because publishing is about perception. Martin looked down at his hands. I said, "And your solution was to make me sound stupid in public?" "Oh, come on. That had nothing to do with the dedication." "Then what did it have to do with?" "It was a joke." "Why that joke?" His mouth tightened. On stage, Vivian finished the excerpt. The moderator touched her forearm and said, "That was beautiful." People clapped. Daniel stood immediately. He looked down at me, waiting. I remained in my chair with Vivian's book against my stomach. After a moment, he sat again. The signing line formed beneath the orange trees. Vivian's publicist directed guests with the brisk panic of an air traffic controller. I checked the catering station, approved the switch from coffee cups to smaller ones when we began running low, and found a power cord for the photographer whose battery pack had failed. Work helped. Objects had honest needs. A cord was too short. A table was uneven. Coffee was hot or it wasn't. People were harder. My radio crackled as I crossed behind the stage. "Sophia." It was Claire, Bellwether's events director. "We've got 12 boxes in the service hall that aren't on the loadout sheet. I found them blocking the emergency cabinet. Each box bore Vivian's name and the logo of a luxury candle company. Daniel appeared while I was reading the shipping label. "Those go home with us," he said. "Our home? Temporarily. There are 12 boxes. They're candles, not refrigerators." I picked up the top carton. It weighed at least 30 pounds. "When did we agree to store tour merchandise?" "Mom's garage is full of books. Then she needs a storage unit. She needs 3 weeks. And you told her yes." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "This is exactly why I didn't bring it up during setup. Because setup would have been an inconvenient time to mention you were filling our house with candles. Because every discussion with you becomes a negotiation. That is what a discussion is. No. Sometimes family asks for something, and you say yes." Behind him, 2 banquet workers slowed with an empty cart. I waved them past us. Daniel lowered his voice. "Can we not do this where your staff can hear?" "They're not my staff. They work for Bellwether." "You know what I mean." I did. He meant people who might remember. I signed the loadout form because the boxes couldn't remain in the emergency corridor. I had them moved to the coat room instead of our car. That bought me 2 hours and felt pathetically like winning. By the time the last guest left, Vivian's feet hurt, the champagne had run out, and Daniel had become charming again. He carried her flowers to the car. He thanked the caterer by name. He found my coat and held it open for me as if we hadn't spent the evening speaking through our teeth. Vivian kissed my cheek in the driveway. "You were wonderful tonight," she said. The night air was cold enough to sharpen every smell. Wet pavement, exhaust, lilies from the bouquet crushed between us. "Why did you remove the dedication?" Her hands paused on my shoulders. Daniel shut the trunk too hard. Vivian stepped back. "I didn't remove it, obviously. You asked Martin to." "Oh, Martin." She smiled, but only with one side of her mouth. "He enjoys making editorial decisions sound like moral victories." "Did you ask?" I reconsidered. Writers reconsider things. After the final proof, I didn't understand how prominently they planned to use it. "It's 1 page. It's the first page." Daniel came around the car. "Mom, you don't have to do this tonight." Vivian ignored him. "There are already people who assume a book like mine is assembled by a committee. I didn't want to feed that idea." "By thanking me? By making your role sound larger than it was." The answer was so clean that it almost gave me relief. Daniel put a hand on his mother's back. "She's exhausted." Vivian looked at me for another second. Something in her face softened or performed softness. "You know I'm grateful," she said, "but gratitude doesn't require an accounting." She got into the car. Daniel drove her home. I stayed to finish the venue close because somebody had to confirm the candles weren't a fire hazard. I took a rideshare home shortly after midnight. The driver played soft jazz and didn't speak to me beyond confirming my address. I tipped him too much for the silence. Our townhouse was dark except for the lamp above the stove. Daniel's shoes were beside the entry bench, toes aligned. He could leave his marriage bleeding in the driveway and still put his shoes away neatly. I dropped my key ring into the blue ceramic bowl. The bowl had been my mother's. Daniel used to tease me for carrying it through 2 apartments wrapped in bath towels. Its glaze was cracked near the rim, and one painted yellow flower had faded to the color of old paper. The little blue glass fob on my keys struck the ceramic with its familiar bright click. Another key lay beneath mine. It had a new brass head and a strip of white tape wrapped around the stem. Written on the tape in Vivian's slanted handwriting was the word home. I picked it up. Daniel came into the hallway in sweatpants, rubbing a towel through his damp hair. "You're back," he said. "Why does your mother have a key to our house?" He stopped. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his eyes went to the bowl, and I saw the calculation arrive before the explanation. She needed access for the tour materials. "You gave her a key. She's had it for a few days, without telling me. It wasn't a secret." I held up the key. "What do you call a thing you deliberately don't tell me?" His face changed. The tiredness disappeared, leaving something firmer. I call it my house too. The key felt warm from my hand. It being your house doesn't make it less mine, I said. I didn't say it did. You just used that exact sentence to end the conversation. Daniel tossed the towel over his shoulder. Mom is storing a few things here. She needs to be able to get in if we're at work. No. His eyebrows lifted. No? No key. For 3 weeks? For 3 minutes. You've had people from work come in when I wasn't home. After I asked you. Do you hear yourself? Yes. That's how I know I'm making sense. He laughed once without humor. Your mother has stayed here. With dates. Agreed in advance. She did not have a key labeled home. You're making the label do a lot of work. Your mother wrote it. She labels everything. She has a label maker, Daniel. She chose a pen for this. He held out his hand. Give it to me. Why? So I can return it tomorrow. I closed my fingers around the key. I'll return it. Don't be dramatic. What is dramatic about returning a key? You know exactly what. You want to walk into her house, hold it up, and turn this into some speech about boundaries. I don't make speeches. You do. You just deliver them one sentence at a time so you can pretend they're conversations. That landed because there was some truth in it. I had learned English mostly from recordings, then perfected it in edit suites where every unnecessary sound could be cut. When I was angry, I became precise. Daniel used to love that about me. On our 3rd date, he told me I could skin a bad argument without raising my voice. Now he called it a speech. I set Vivian's key on the narrow shelf above the bowl, out of his reach without being childish enough to hide it. The key stays there, I said. The candles do not come here. What candles? The 12 boxes you told Bellwether we would store. His expression flickered. That was your solution? I asked. Hope the staff packed them into my car while I wasn't looking? They're promotional inventory. They're cedar and fig candles with your mother's name on them. She has a brand partnership. She has a garage. I told you the garage is full. Then she can light 6,000 candles and sell the books in the dark. He almost smiled. I saw it happen and disappear. There were years when that would have saved us. One stupid image, one private laugh, his hand at the back of my neck. We had survived fights about his mother's Christmas schedule in my 12-hour editing days because one of us eventually said something ridiculous and the other one surrendered. This time, Daniel looked at the key. You embarrassed her tonight, he said. She tried to remove my name. She panicked. And you knew. I knew she'd ask Martin a question. She asked him to print a blank page. You're choosing the ugliest wording for everything. There isn't a beautiful way to erase someone. He turned toward the stairs. Daniel, I'm sleeping in the guest room. Your mother's garment racks are in there. His shoulders sagged. The racks had arrived 2 days earlier, each holding outfits grouped by city. Vivian had called them a few tour things. I had given up the guest room because Daniel said his mother was overwhelmed. He picked up a pillow from our bed and slept on the living room couch. I took my laptop into the kitchen. The joint account showed 4 charges I hadn't seen: a car service for Vivian, rush printing for bookmarks, dinner for something called the Launch Circle, and a $2,400 deposit to Renee Park Events. I clicked the last charge twice, as if the number might become reasonable if I approached it carefully. Daniel had used the account Thursday morning. Thursday evening, over pasta, he'd suggested we postpone replacing our broken dishwasher rack because we were spending like crazy lately. I opened a blank spreadsheet. For 3 hours, I listed every expense connected to the book: venue deposit, florist advance, audio equipment rental, the courier who had delivered corrected pages to Vivian's house after she refused to use the publisher's online system. Most had been reimbursed. Some had dissolved into groceries, electricity, parking, and evenings I had stopped counting. I began counting. At 4:12, I found the folder of emails Martin had sent during the manuscript crisis. Sophia, would you be willing to take one more pass at these recordings? Sophia, the chapter sequence you proposed solves our middle. Sophia, please track your hours. We have editorial funds for this. I had answered the last message with, "Don't worry about it. Family peace is compensation enough." At the time, I thought it was funny. I forwarded the thread to myself and went upstairs without waking Daniel. By morning, the key was gone from the shelf. Daniel was pouring coffee when I came into the kitchen. "Did you take it?" "I told you I'd return it. You said tomorrow. It is tomorrow." "You left the house?" "I put it in an envelope for Mom." "Where is the envelope?" "In my work bag." "Then you haven't returned it." He set down the coffee pot. "Do you need to witness a ceremony?" "I need to know she no longer has access to our house." "She won't." "That isn't an answer." "Yes, Sophia, I'm returning the key." He picked up his bag and kissed the air beside my cheek. The gesture was automatic. His body performed it before either of us could stop him. At the door, he looked back. "Renee is taking over the tour logistics," he said. "So you don't have to feel imposed on. You hired her with our money. It's a deposit. For your mother's tour. Mom will reimburse us when the next royalty payment comes. You made that decision without me, because you quit in the middle of her launch. I finished her launch. You know what I mean." "No, I know what you need it to mean." He opened the door. "I'll transfer half that deposit back into the account today," I said. "The other half is your choice." He stared at me. "You're splitting expenses now?" "I'm splitting that one. This is marriage, not a restaurant check." "A restaurant check would list what I agreed to pay for." He left hard enough to make the framed print by the door swing crooked. At Bellwether, the east wing smelled like stale champagne and damp greenery. A custodian rolled tape off the limestone while I walked the room with Claire Donnelly, my director. Claire was 50, practical, and loyal only after coffee. She wore black suits with running shoes and had once ended a donor argument by lying flat on the floor to demonstrate where a temporary wall would fall. "You look terrible," she said. "My face is having a private day. It's failing." We checked the glass doors, the catering kitchen, and the loadout sheet. The candle boxes remained in the coat room. "Your mother-in-law called at 7:30, Claire said. "Of course she did." "She said we agreed to hold these through the tour." "We didn't." That's what I told her. I stopped. "You did?" Claire made a mark on her clipboard. "I'm unpleasant before 8. She chose poorly." I laughed for the first time since Daniel's joke. Claire looked at me over her glasses. She also asked about booking the West Gallery for a media dinner next month. She said you'd arrange the family rate. There is no family rate. There was last night. Last night was my employee event allowance. It's used. Good answer. I signed the closing report and photographed the untouched boxes. I need future requests from Vivian Mercer handled like any other client. I said, new agreement, regular deposit, no verbal approvals through Daniel. Claire lowered the clipboard. Is this marital or operational? Operational. That was quick. It can be both. She studied me long enough that I felt the champagne still moving behind my eyes. Put it in an email, she said. Keep the husband out of the building unless he's carrying a check. My office was a windowless room beside the archive lab. I liked it because sound behaved there. I could hear the difference between the air conditioner and the hard drive fan, the small buzz a cable made before it failed. Vivian's interview recordings occupied 186 gigabytes on an encrypted drive in my locked cabinet. Her raw voice lived there, vain, funny, cruel, tender, bored. She complained about Roger's breathing, then cried while describing the way he folded her scarf over a restaurant chair. She forgot dates and remembered tablecloths. She admitted that Daniel's father had left partly because she made every disagreement into proof he didn't love her. People say they want honesty, she'd told me during our last recording session. What they want is a flattering explanation. I had kept that line. It opened chapter 9. I called Martin. He answered on the second ring. I was hoping you would. Why? Because I handled last night badly. You made Vivian's launch more honest than she wanted. That's different. I cornered you. You gave me a book. In front of microphones. I've survived microphones. He was quiet. Daniel's imitation was repellent. Hearing someone else name it made my throat tighten. He gets stupid around her, I said. That's generous. It wasn't meant to be. I opened the old email thread. You told me there were editorial funds. There were. There are. I told you not to worry about it. Yes. I've changed my mind. Good. His answer came so easily that I almost resented him. I'm sending a record of my hours and direct expenses, I said. Anything clearly commissioned by the publisher. I'm not billing for dinners with Vivian or conversations that started as family favors. That's fair. I also won't produce the tour recordings. A pause. The contract with Vivian references audio excerpts, edited excerpts from approved material. I delivered the manuscript clips. The live city introductions, playback cues, and new narration were favors I hadn't completed. I understand. Does Vivian? No. Then you should probably call her. I believe she's already calling me. A light on his office phone blinked audibly through the line. I sent the invoice before I could make it smaller. It came to $18,760, including equipment, transcript cleanup, structural editing, and the hours Martin had specifically requested. My hands went cold after I clicked send. The number looked aggressive until I divided it by 10 months. Then it looked embarrassing. At noon, Vivian called. I let it ring once before answering. You invoiced my publisher, she said. I invoiced Martin for work he commissioned. For almost $19,000. Yes, this is punitive. It's itemized. You told us you didn't want to be paid. I told Martin not to worry about payment because I believed I was helping family. You were helping family. Last night you said my role wasn't large. It wasn't $19,000 large. Then Martin can dispute the hours. You know he won't. He's angry with me. That isn't my responsibility. You made it your responsibility when you turned the dedication into a spectacle. I moved the phone away from my ear, stared at it, then brought it back. Martin crossed the room, I said. Martin opened the book. Martin told me to read. How did I turn it into anything? You could have smiled and declined. Why? Because it was my night. And my name. She breathed out slowly. I could picture her at the kitchen island, one hand flat on the cool marble. I don't know what you want from me, Sophia. I want the candles removed from Bellwether by 5. That's what this is about? No, that's just what has to happen by 5. Renee Park arrived at 4:40 with a cargo van and an apologetic expression. She was petite, quick-moving, and dressed as if someone might ask her to coordinate a wedding in the next 30 seconds. I'm so sorry, she said. Daniel told me these were at your house. He was optimistic. She glanced at the boxes. Is there anything else stored there that I need for Philadelphia? Garment racks, 2 cases of books. A printer Vivian says is portable but requires 2 people and an apology. Renee smiled despite herself. I can pick everything up tomorrow, she said. Coordinate with Daniel. You won't be home? I won't be coordinating. Her smile disappeared. Right, understood. I watched the van pull away with the candles. It was after 7 when I returned to the townhouse. The porch light was on. Through the front window, I saw garment bags moving in the hallway. I unlocked the door. Vivian stood beside the blue ceramic bowl, wearing her gold launch jacket and carrying 2 empty hangers. Renee was upstairs dismantling the racks. Daniel was in the kitchen opening a bottle of wine. Vivian smiled at me with exhausted courtesy. Don't worry, she said. We're getting everything out of your way. I looked at the bowl. My keys were not in it yet. Daniel's were on the hook by the kitchen. Vivian's purse sat zipped on the entry bench. A brass key with a strip of white tape lay beside the faded yellow flower. Home. Daniel followed my eyes. I thought you returned it, I said. Vivian picked up the key and slipped it into her jacket pocket. I did, Daniel said. She needed it tonight. That is not returning it. Daniel set the wine bottle on the counter. It was returned, then Mom needed to pick up her things. Renee is here. She could have let her in. I didn't know when they'd arrive. So you gave it back. For one evening. Vivian touched the key through her pocket as if checking that it was still there. I would never come in without a reason. You being able to decide what counts as a reason is the problem. Renee appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a collapsed garment rack. Her eyes moved between us. "I can take that," Daniel said. "I've got it." The rack unfolded halfway with a metallic snap and struck the banister. Renee caught it against her hip. Vivian sighed. "This is becoming absurd. It became absurd when you labeled our house as yours. It says home, Sophia. It doesn't say Vivian's home. You wrote it on a key to my front door." "Our front door," Daniel said. I stared at him. He looked away first, but only toward Renee. "Can we finish packing?" Renee came carefully down the stairs. "I can wait outside," she said. Vivian gave her a wounded smile. "Please don't let a family misunderstanding make you uncomfortable." "That's what family misunderstandings are best at," Renee said. It was the first interesting thing I'd heard from her. She carried the rack outside. Vivian began to follow, but I held out my hand. "The key. I'll leave it when we're done. Now." Vivian's fingers closed around it inside her pocket. "Daniel gave this to me. I'm asking for it back. You're asking me to stand on the sidewalk while strangers carry my clothes out of your house. Renee is not a stranger. You hired her to take over for me." "That isn't what I meant." "I know." Daniel stepped between us. "Mom, give her the key." Vivian looked at him as if he had changed languages in the middle of a sentence. "It's one key," he said. "Just give it to her." She pulled it from her pocket and placed it in his palm instead of mine. Daniel held it for a second, then gave it to me. The little strip of tape was dirty around the edges. I peeled it off. Vivian watched the word home fold in on itself between my fingers. "There," she said. "You've made your point. I wanted a key. No, you wanted me to feel like an intruder." I could have told her she had arrived that way. I could have told her she'd trained Daniel to hear any boundary as an accusation. Instead, I put the key in my pocket. Renee came back for the next rack. Vivian turned toward the door. Apparently, we're not welcome. Daniel followed her outside. I stood beside the blue bowl and listened to them load the van. When Daniel came back, he found me closing the door to my small workroom off the dining room. I kept my home recording setup there. Microphones, speakers, old notebooks, backup drives from completed museum projects. Vivian's interviews were on the encrypted drive at Bellwether, but early test recordings and my handwritten session notes were in the desk. I locked the door. Daniel watched the key turn. "That's new." "So was giving your mother access." "What do you think she was going to do? Steal your headphones?" "I don't think she was going to do anything. I no longer want to rely on what I think she might do." He leaned against the wall. The anger had drained out of him, leaving him pale. "Renee costs $600 a day," he said, "plus travel." Then I was a bargain. Mom can't afford her for the whole tour. She has a publisher. The publisher covers publicity, not personal production. Then she needs a smaller production. This tour matters. I know. It could keep the book alive through the fall. I understand. Then why are you doing this now? I put the workroom key on my ring beside the blue glass fob. Because if I wait until it's convenient for your mother, I will never stop. He looked at the keys. You're punishing her for the dedication. No, I'm believing her about it. He slept on the couch again. The next afternoon, I opened an account in my name and redirected my salary. I left enough in the joint account to cover my half of the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, and the automatic payment on the car we shared. Then I sent Daniel a spreadsheet. He called within 6 minutes. "You opened a separate account?" "I told you I was separating expenses. You said 1 deposit. I found 4 charges. The other 3 were small. They were decisions. You went through the account looking for evidence." I looked at our money. "You're acting like I stole from you. You spent money we both earned without asking me. I spent it on my mother, not at a casino." Does that change where it came from? It changes what it means. That was Daniel's gift. He could turn facts into questions of tone until defending the fact made you seem cruel. I'm not emptying anything, I said. Every shared bill is covered. I'm not funding the tour. Martin is paying you almost $19,000. The publisher is reviewing an invoice. For work you volunteered to do. For work he commissioned. You didn't care about that distinction until you got angry. That doesn't make the distinction disappear. He went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Are you leaving me? I sat alone in my office with one hand on the encrypted drive cabinet. I'm trying to find out if there is a marriage here when I stop being useful to your mother. That's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to wonder. He hung up. Martin approved the invoice 2 days later. The money would come from the publisher's editorial budget, not Vivian's royalties, a detail that did nothing to calm her. She sent me a 3-paragraph email about loyalty, followed 20 minutes later by a 1-line request for the edited Philadelphia audio. I forwarded the approved clips to Renee and nothing else. Renee called from the train station. I think I'm missing the city introduction. You are. And the dinner table sequence. It wasn't completed. Vivian says she recorded it with you. She talked while I tested a microphone. She never approved a cut. She says you promised. I said I would try. Renee was silent while an announcement echoed behind her. I'm not asking you to violate anything, she said. I'm trying to know what exists. 3 approved excerpts. Martin has all 3. Okay. And Renee? Yes? Please don't accept production instructions from Daniel as if they came from me. Another silence. Understood, she said. The Philadelphia event went on with 1 excerpt instead of 4. Vivian's publicist posted photographs of a full room, and Daniel sent me one without comment. Vivian looked composed. Renee stood behind the sound table wearing a headset, one hand raised toward the technician. They did not collapse without me. I had never truly believed they would. Still, the knowledge hurt in a place I hadn't expected. I wanted my absence to be survivable. I also wanted it to have weight. Its weight arrived at Bellwether the next morning. Claire shut my office door and placed a printed complaint on my desk. Vivian? I asked. Daniel. I looked at the signature twice. He had written from his business email, describing a conflict of interest between my family relationship and Bellwether's venue decisions. He said I had used my authority to withdraw previously promised support after a personal disagreement. He requested confirmation that Vivian's upcoming hometown media event would be protected from retaliatory interference. Retaliatory, I said. It's a strong word. It's a coward's word when you're married to the person. Claire sat across from me. Did you promise the West Gallery? No. Did Vivian have reason to think you did? I said I would check dates before the launch. She hadn't chosen one. Did you use your employee allowance for the launch? With your approval. Verbally. You signed the closing report. Afterward. I looked at her. Claire took off her glasses. Without them, she seemed more tired and less certain. I believe you, she said. That is not the same as clean paperwork. What happens? The hometown event goes through central booking. You have no role in the contract, operations, staffing, or media access. That's fine. And I'm moving the Hawthorne Foundation dinner to Luis until I finish reviewing this. The sentence took a moment to settle. I had worked on Hawthorne for 5 months. It was the largest museum donor event of the year, and the first project Claire had allowed me to lead without her signing every decision. Daniel's complaint has nothing to do with Hawthorne. It questions your judgment. So ask me. I am asking you to step away while I verify the facts. Which facts? All of them. I wanted to be as precise as Daniel accused me of being. Instead, I heard my voice rise. You told me to put future terms in writing. I did. After the launch. Because that was when they tried to claim more. And from outside your marriage, that timing can look punitive. From inside it, it looks late. Claire flinched. I hated that. I hated Daniel for putting the paper on my desk, Claire for treating his phrasing as neutral, and myself for wanting her belief to outweigh her job. How long? I asked. A week, maybe 2. Hawthorne is in 9 days. I know. There it was, a consequence that did not belong to Vivian but landed on me anyway. I walked home instead of taking the train. The sky threatened rain without committing. By the time I reached our block, my feet hurt and my anger had cooled into something heavier. Daniel was under the kitchen sink replacing the dishwasher rack's broken wheel. For months, the lower rack had jumped its track whenever we pulled it out. I had learned to lift the left side with my foot. Daniel had ordered the part the morning after I separated the account. He sat back on his heels. Claire called. Why? To confirm I sent the complaint. You tried to get me removed from your mother's event. I asked Bellwether to protect the contract. There was no contract when I withdrew. There is now. You cost me Hawthorne. His face changed. What? She took it away while she reviews my judgment. I didn't mention Hawthorne. You didn't have to. He stood too quickly and struck his shoulder on the counter. I did not move to help him. I'm sorry, he said. Are you? Yes. Then withdraw the complaint. The event is in 6 days. Withdraw it. Mom has already announced the venue. Then central booking can handle it, just like Claire said. They need the recordings. No. Sophia. No. He put both hands on the counter. The media invitation promises excerpts in your format. Vivian's voice, the kitchen sounds, the questions underneath. My questions. Yes, your questions. We can credit you. I laughed. I'm serious. A full production credit. On the program, in the introduction, whatever you want. Last week, my name on one page made your mother feel exposed. She's reconsidered. She needs something. Both can be true. His honesty surprised me enough that I looked at him. He came closer, stopping before he touched me. Finish this event. After that, the tour moves on. Renee can handle the rest. We take a week away, just us. We talk. You filed a professional complaint against me. I was trying to separate the event from our marriage. You used my employer to win an argument in our kitchen. I panicked. The same word he had used for Vivian. He saw me hear it. I'm asking you, he said. Not telling you, please. For a moment, I saw the man who once drove across the city at midnight because I had left my favorite headphones in an edit bay. The man who knew I hated hotel pillows and packed mine without teasing me. He was still there, asking me to make one more problem disappear. I almost did. Then the front door opened. Renee stepped into the hallway and froze when she saw us. In one hand, she held Vivian's garment bag. In the other, she held a brass key wrapped with fresh white tape. She looked down at it, then at Daniel. You said I could let myself in, she said. I turned to him. Daniel stared at the key as though Renee had brought in something dead. She slowly peeled back the edge of the tape. In Vivian's handwriting, the word home appeared again. Renee held the key out to me. I thought Daniel had cleared it with you, she said. He didn't. Daniel's face had gone still. It's for work access. It opens our front door, I said. Renee needed to pick up the garment bag. And you made her a key? I gave Mom's copy to Renee. I turned it over. The teeth were sharper than the key in my pocket, freshly cut. This is another copy. No one spoke. Renee set the garment bag against the wall. Daniel also said the early interview notes were in the home studio. I told him I wouldn't touch anything without Sophia here. My workroom door was 10 feet away. You asked her to get my notes? We need the audio sequence. You were going to have her search my workroom. No, I told her where the material might be. The room is locked. I know. Something in the way he said it made me walk to the door. The lock showed a bright scratch beside the keyhole. It could have been old. I had never studied it before because I had never needed to. I tried the knob. It held. Did you try to get in? Daniel looked insulted. Of course not. Did your mother? No. Did you tell Renee how? No. Renee's gaze dropped to Daniel's hands. He saw it. What? You said the desk key might be on your ring, she said. That was a guess. The desk key isn't on my ring, I said. He rubbed his forehead. Fine, I was trying to solve a problem. With my recordings. With copies of conversations my mother had with you for her book, recorded on my equipment stored in my room, not approved for use. We were going to ask Martin after you took them. I wasn't going to take anything. You sent a person into our house with a copied key and instructions to look for them. Renee's face tightened. I didn't understand that was the situation. I know. Vivian's jacket hung inside the garment bag. Gold silk showed through a gap in the zipper, the same jacket she had worn while laughing on stage. Daniel reached for the key. Give it to me. Renee handed it to me instead. That was the moment the alliance changed, not dramatically. She simply chose which open hand she trusted. Daniel let his fall. How many? I asked. How many what? Keys. He didn't answer. How many copies did you make? 2. Who has the other one? Mom. The original key sat in my pocket. The copy in my palm still carried the warmth of Renee's hand. You looked me in the face and said she no longer had access. I knew you were overreacting, so you decided my consent didn't count. I decided we didn't need to blow up our lives over a spare key. You didn't avoid blowing up our lives. You just made sure I wouldn't hear the explosion. Sophia. I took my coat from the hook. His anger broke into fear. Where are you going? I don't know. This is your house. Apparently everyone has a key. I packed enough for 3 nights while Daniel followed me from room to room. He offered explanations in different sizes. His mother needed flexibility. Renee's schedule was complicated. The tour would be over soon. He had planned to collect both copies after the hometown event. Each explanation asked me to believe that the ending would make the lie harmless. In the bedroom, I took clothes from the closet and put them into the small suitcase we used for weekend trips. You don't have to leave, he said. I can't stay tonight. Then I'll go. If you go, will you take all your keys? He sat on the edge of the bed. I regretted the sentence as soon as I saw his face, but I did not take it back. The blue ceramic bowl was too fragile to put in the suitcase. I wrapped it in one of my sweaters and carried it against my chest. My key ring rested inside, the blue glass fob catching the hallway light with every step. Daniel stood beside the open front door. Come home tomorrow, he said. I don't know what that word means to you anymore. He closed his eyes. I stayed at a business hotel 3 train stops from Bellwether. The room had gray curtains, a coffee maker that hissed like an angry cat, and a framed photograph of a bridge no one in the city could identify. I put the bowl on the desk and dropped both unauthorized keys into it. They sounded heavier than mine. Renee emailed Martin and Claire that night. She described what Daniel had asked her to retrieve, attached his messages, and stated that she had been given access to my home after being told I approved. She copied Vivian. Vivian replied only to Renee. Your interpretation of a rushed conversation is disappointing. Renee forwarded that too. Claire called before 9 the next morning. The complaint is withdrawn, she said. Daniel withdrew it? He tried to amend it. I told him those were his options. What happens to Hawthorne? Luis keeps the lead. We're too close to move it again. The loss tightened beneath my ribs. I understand. You'll remain on the team if you want. Will I be there as decoration or staff? As the person who built the plan, reporting to Luis for final decisions. It was fair. I hated it. I'll do it. Claire exhaled. The review found no misuse of your position. Your event allowance was approved in the budget meeting, even if I failed to document it properly. We both failed. Yes. I prefer when you're annoying enough to say that. I smiled despite myself. The Mercer event remains with central booking, she continued. You are not assigned, and you have no authority over it. Good. I mean that, Sophia. Stay out of the room. I plan to, Plans are easy before Vivian Mercer sits across from you. She found me that afternoon in Bellwether's public cafe, where I was eating soup between Hawthorne meetings. She had exchanged the gold jacket for a navy coat and wore no lipstick. Without the polished mouth, she looked older and more severe. "May I sit?" "It's a public cafe." That isn't what I asked. I moved my bag from the other chair. Vivian sat but did not remove her coat. "Renee has resigned after the hometown event." I didn't ask her to. She says the scope keeps changing. It does. She also says she won't use your materials. That's her job. Vivian looked at my soup. "Is that lunch?" It was aspiring to be. She folded her hands. "Daniel told me you left." "Daniel tells you a great deal. He's frightened. So am I." That surprised her. She had arrived prepared for coldness, not fear. "I never wanted to damage your marriage," she said. "You wanted him to choose you. I'm his mother. I'm his wife. Those are different relationships. They should have been." Her fingers shifted against each other. "I gave the key back," she said, "after keeping the copy. Daniel made that. I didn't ask him to." "You accepted it." "Yes." It was the first answer she had given me without trimming the edges. "Why?" I asked. "Because I could." She looked toward the glass doors leading into the conservatory. Rain marked them in thin, wavering lines. "I have spent my entire life making myself useful enough to enter any room," she said. "Hosting, remembering birthdays, fixing people's clothes, knowing which wine to bring. When my son gave me a key, I did not stop to ask what it cost you. I liked what it said about my place." "Then you wrote home on it." "Yes, the word lay between us." "The dedication was true when you wrote it," I said. Vivian's mouth moved before any sound came. "It was. And then?" "Martin used it in an early media pitch. A journalist asked how much editorial help I had. I heard your name and thought the entire book was moving out from under me. So you removed me." I tried. "You let Daniel mock the way I speak." I laughed. "You knew why he was doing it." "I knew he was trying to make the room less serious." "For you?" "Yes." The soup had formed a skin. Vivian leaned forward. "I am telling you the truth now." "You've always told the truth when it made a good scene." Her face tightened. I had heard sharper lines from her than the one I gave back, but this one had been hers first. I watched her recognize it. "We need the audio," she said finally. There it was. "No." "The hometown event has television coverage." "No." "Martin says he will not release the unfinished material without your permission." "Good. I'll credit you." "No." "What would make it right?" "Nothing that can happen before Friday." She sat back. "You're willing to humiliate me again." "I'm willing to let your event be the event you can produce without taking from me." "That sounds elegant, Sophia. It is still revenge." "Maybe." The admission calmed me. I did want her to feel the missing weight of what I had carried. Pretending otherwise would turn me into another Mercer rearranging motives until they looked flattering. "But I'm not sabotaging you," I said. "I'm not interfering with the venue, the publisher, or the press. I am withdrawing my work." She stood. At the cafe entrance, she turned. "Daniel loves you." I know. That was what made the choice difficult. The hometown event began Friday at 7. I spent the afternoon in the West offices with the Hawthorne seating chart, then took the service corridor toward the staff exit at 6:40. Through the glass doors, I could see Vivian's audience filling the east wing. The same stage stood beneath the orange trees. The audio table had been moved to the back. Daniel stood beside it in a dark suit, speaking urgently to a technician. He saw me through the glass and came out. "Please," he said before the door closed. "I'm leaving. The approved excerpts are corrupted." "They're not. Martin has backups. The introduction doesn't connect to them. Renee says we need the room tone tracks and your narration. You don't. The whole program was built around it." After I said no, He put his hand on the door, blocking it without touching me. I withdrew the complaint. Claire made you. I apologized to her. You haven't apologized to me. I'm sorry. For what? For the joke, the key, the money, all of it. That's a list. What do you want me to say? The truth. He stared through the glass at his mother's stage. When he spoke, his voice was almost too low to hear. I thought if the event got close enough, you'd come back. Why? Because you always do. The answer opened something cold and clean inside me. He continued before I could speak. You hate watching things fail. You fix the sound, the schedule, the person. I thought once people were sitting down, you wouldn't let it go badly. So the complaint, the copied key, sending Renee into my room, I was keeping the event alive until you stopped being angry. Until my consent expired? He flinched. I didn't think of it like that. That's the problem. Martin opened the glass door from inside. We're simplifying, he told Daniel. One approved excerpt, then a reading and discussion. The invitations promised an audio experience. The audience came for Vivian. My mother built press around the format. Your wife built the format, Martin said. She has declined to provide it. Daniel looked at me. You could still change your mind. I could. I stepped around him and walked toward the staff exit. I did not leave the building. Claire intercepted me with a Hawthorne donor question, then another. By the time we finished, Vivian's event had begun. Her voice traveled faintly through the corridor speakers. Martin introduced the approved excerpt. It was one I had completed months earlier. Vivian describing Roger folding her scarf over the back of a chair. Underneath her voice, I had layered the soft clink of restaurant silverware and the low rush of evening traffic. Then the recording ended. There was no city introduction, no dinner table sequence, no narration to carry Vivian safely into the next section. Her live voice returned. I should explain what you just heard, she said. I stopped beside the service door. That piece was made from an interview with my daughter-in-law, Sophia Almeida. I supplied the memory. She knew which silence to leave around it. A pause. My book contains many of my sentences. Its shape owes a great deal to her questions, her editing, and her patience. I was afraid that saying so would make the book less mine. Daniel stood in the back with his hands at his sides. Vivian touched the open copy before her. It did not. Hiding it made me less honest. She read the dedication herself. Her pronunciation of my name was perfect. Martin later told me she abandoned half her prepared remarks and answered questions plainly. The event was shorter than promised. The television segment used the dedication and her admission rather than the elaborate audio package. Renee finished the night, submitted her invoice, and left the tour. Vivian continued with smaller rooms and local technicians. She paid them. When a venue lacked the equipment she wanted, she changed the program instead of calling me. Daniel came to the hotel 2 days later. We sat in the lobby because I did not invite him upstairs. I kept giving her keys because saying no to her felt like betrayal, he said. Then you said no, and I treated yours as temporary. Yes. I thought marriage meant I had more claim on you. He rubbed the pale band beneath his wedding ring. I still think we can fix this. I believed he meant it. I also believed he would work hard, attend counseling, return every key, and resent me for requiring it. Love was present in all of that. Safety was not. I can't come home, I said. His eyes filled, and he looked away toward the revolving doors. We arranged the separation without grace. Daniel remained in the townhouse while we prepared to sell it. I paid my share of the mortgage and stopped paying for the life inside it. We argued over furniture, the car, and a set of wine glasses neither of us wanted. Hawthorne stayed with Luis, though he gave me credit in every meeting and asked me to lead the next event with him. Martin's invoice payment arrived exactly 30 days after approval. The audiobook producer contacted me about recording the dedication. Vivian had requested my voice, and this time, the contract named the work and the fee before I entered the studio. I read the words once. The engineer asked for another take. I read them again in the voice Daniel had imitated, the voice Vivian had tried to remove, the voice Martin had trusted with the first page. When I returned to my new apartment, the late sun crossed the bare floor and reached the blue ceramic bowl beside the door. I dropped my keys into it. The blue glass fob struck the faded yellow flower with one clear, familiar click.